Welcome to episode 16 of the So Spurs podcast, where tonight we've got with us Deej. How are you, mate?
Doing good.
Good stuff. Stu, how are you, man?
Evening all good.
And of course, we've got Johnny. How are you, mate?
I'm great, mate. Yeah, good to see you.
Good to see you too. Good to see you too. So finally, a weekend where we can have some positivity, I guess. Spurs win. Gooners get a lucky point, but they drop 2 points in a title race, putting the race, well, okay, technically in City's hands, but also in Arsenal's hands, because either of those win all their games, they win the title. But it's something to feel good about. And a very, I think we've got to start with that really bizarre game we had on Saturday, right? Deej, I'll start with you, mate. What did you make of it? Were we just really lucky, or were we better?
I think that the reaction of the fan base after the game was a bit harsh. I do think that was probably one of our better games recently, which is obviously not saying anything. I think that we did do a better job pressing in their third. I think that that created a couple of opportunities for us, including what ended up being the winning goal. I don't think that that's something that we saw them do against Everton. It's not something that really was indicative of a Conte team, which was good to see. I think that dropping off in the middle third is probably something that we do because we have to, not because we want to, because let's be honest, we've all watched our backline attempt to play football. And with the exception of Romero, I don't think I trust any of the back five. And maybe Longley a little bit. Maybe it's unfair to put him next to Perisic and Dyer and call him a bad defender. But with the exception of Romero, I wouldn't trust anyone to keep out goal from a group of middle schoolers. So, I think overall it was a good game. I think Brighton were still the better team. I think Brighton probably deserved at least a draw. I think at least one of the handball goals I think the Matoma goal was pretty clearly a handball. I think that that's a bit of a reach. I think that the second one, we've had that goal disallowed at least 5 times, so I don't feel bad about that at all. I think that Højbjerg definitely fouled Matoma. However, as was brought up on Twitter, if it was Harry Kane that went down, we would have been talking about how Harry Kane's a diving cheat for the next month. So, at the end of the day, we got a rub of the green. That doesn't normally happen to us, and I refuse to feel bad about it because we have not had that recently.
Johnny, you're nodding. What do you make, mate?
Yeah, I agree with everything. In terms of the decisions, I think, there's no question. So it definitely should have been a penalty. And I think it's fair enough. Yeah, I think that we were lucky with the first disallowed goal. It was the linesman that gave it, and I think it's one of those ones if it had been allowed, the VAR is not going to call it a handball probably. So we were quite lucky that the linesman called that in our favour. And I think Welbeck actually, that was a really nice bit of control and finish, wasn't it? So it was quite sweet that we were lucky again. It just hit your man's arm in the way in. But yeah, I don't know. I wasn't at the game yesterday for this first league match I've missed this season at home, and so I've only got the match of the day extracts to go on. But in terms of those big talking points, I think there was, besides the controversies, for Spurs, it's like 5 home wins in a row in the league, which is the way we started the season. And, some of those results, and in fact, I think Conte's only in charge of the Forest one out of all of those. We're winning at home, even if we're not playing great. Obviously, Danjuma got on the pitch, so that was a good thing. And great goal by Sonny. I mean, that was absolute cracking, Sonny at his best, wasn't it? Sort of trademark goal of his. So, there's good things to take from him. And Harry Kane, of course, is quiet, and then when he gets his chance, he pulls the trigger and does what he does. So there's I think Deej is right. We've been very unlucky. Okay, we were crap at Southampton, but we were robbed by that decision, and swings and roundabouts. Not going to feel bad about it, especially when it's against a rival we still have to talk about the Champions League because, okay, Brentford were winning yesterday against Newcastle. I mean, like, we still got to play Newcastle. I don't want to go there and get all excited because we're still, far from convincing. But the season's alive even for us. Like, there's still a lot to, there's jeopardy in every game, and there's our rivals hopefully continuing to mess up. So yeah. It's a good weekend. Good weekend. However it happened, the actual outcome is good.
No one's going to win their last 8 games.
No.
That's how I see it. So
definitely
a lot can still happen. And Stu, I had a question for you as well. So what did you make of the tactical changes when Mason took over after Stellini's red? Was that anything to read into? Was that just coincidental?
No, I mean, you could tell he was clearly putting his stamp on the game. I mean, Danjuma even kind of referenced it with his post, his social media post with the free emoji. I think, it was pretty clear. And referring to what DJ said about the second goal that we scored coming from the pressing, in my opinion, that was also thanks to Danjuma coming on. Because as soon as he came on, he was chasing them all across the back. And, surprise, surprise, you put pressure on and things happen. And the substitutions, I mean, bringing on Sarr. Again, what were we shouting at the Everton game? That Sarr should have come up on instead of Sanchez to bolster midfield? Because that was the other thing I thought. They played around our midfield because that 2 in the middle, it just doesn't work. So again, he brought on Sarr. So I think, Mason is showing the substitutions that Conte and Stellini should have been making all season. Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results is the definition of insanity. And finally, I think, Stellini getting sent off might have done us a favor. If he's going to get 1 match touch line bans,
it's interesting though. There's an Alistair Gold video released like a few hours ago, and I've only watched bits and pieces of it. But he was saying that what Stu's just said is what most people would have thought too. And I'm not saying Alistair Gold, is every word is gospel, but he was saying that when Stellini got sent off, he went up to the press box. And there's a couple of lads in the press box for Tottenham who do like analysis, and they're continually communicating with the bench and do all the stats and feedback to the bench on what they're seeing from that perspective. And according to Alistair Gold, Stellini was just like getting those fellas to continually tell them what to do. And Gold wasn't having any of this. Mason's taken over and Mason's making all the decisions. So I don't know. In a way, I hope he's right, because he also doesn't seem to think that in the nature of the red card, he doesn't think it will be result in a suspension because of it was ridiculous. He didn't get involved at all. If that means that Stellini's on the touchline, you want it to have been Stellini that has made those changes, don't you, really? Because he's going to be ultimately still calling the shots. So I don't know.
Although, I got you.
I was going to say, I hope you're right, because as you said, that means that he's making those changes.
Yeah.
It just makes you wonder why he didn't do that against
Everton.
Exactly. That, copy and paste Conte's tactics.
Absolutely.
Working.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
I would say about the game that I disagree with you guys about the first Brighton goal. I think I clearly don't understand the rules anymore about handball, because I understood that handball now, if it hit above the t-shirt line and up, wasn't handball. And Mitoma clearly controls it with his arm, so in my mind that's handball. But he controls it with a part of the arm that is the t-shirt line. So it's kind of hard watching the game now to understand what the rules are.
Yeah,
I think it looks like on the review, like on the it's one of those ones that's 50-50, from what it looked like on the review from what I saw, and obviously as a Spurs fan I'm super biased, but it was like on the t-shirt line, and if it's like a 50-50 call, if I see Harry Kane score that and it gets disallowed, I'm not going to kick off about that. Like I'd rather the handball rules be more strict about like this part of the body, the upper arm. I'd rather it be more strict than less strict. So I wouldn't complain about that.
I agree. I just don't understand the rules. Is what I'm saying.
No one does. They just pull shit out of a hat.
Yeah.
It's like
Because it either is hands or it isn't hands. But I mean, again, he clearly controlled it with his arm, so it should be hands.
Yeah.
But another one is that I don't understand is in the closing stages. There was another one. Was it Romero that was pulling somebody's jersey? I cannot remember who it was, but like, it was very obvious. I mean, I would say if it was the Spurs that's a penalty. Yeah. But I mean, that happens quite a lot. And there was like a phase a while ago, wasn't there, when there was like penalties going all the time for those sorts of things. But then it kind of stopped.
We started calling those, and then every game was decided by penalties off a set pieces. And the Premier League kind of decided that that's not going to happen. I think the thing is with those kind of fouls, I think, is it's like if the player doesn't fall, you're never even going to look at it.
Mm.
And it's so hard to tell in like those kind of situations whether or not you're milking it.
Mm.
And
I do wonder if the stamp penalty wasn't given because he went down clutching his shin when it was a stamp on his foot. And I wonder if that's also kind of didn't play in his favor. I don't know. I'm just trying to wonder why they didn't give it, because it was a penalty.
There is a bit part of this though is all. So if everyone wants to, you can Google it. There's an ESPN do a live tracker of VAR decisions by club, and basically it tells you every time VAR's intervened and got a decision right or wrong, and how much that's benefited or been a detriment to your team this year. So Brighton have been by far the biggest victims of this. So they have had 6 decisions net going against them this season.
Yeah.
So there were 5 against them already before the game. So they felt particularly aggravated that there's this agenda of protecting top 6 clubs, because most of these things happened against the top 6, to ensure they didn't break the status quo, as it were, and challenge that European kind of safe hold that a lot of other clubs see that we have. So I think part of this is a bit of a straw broke the camel's back. It was like, it wasn't one outrageously obvious decision. It was like 4 or 5 50-50s or 60-40s that, at least 2 of them should have gone Brighton's way, and none went Brighton's way. And I think people just had enough. And of course, it's Tottenham, so we don't have this army of, like, Man United do, of pundits in the media protecting everything that happens to us, or Liverpool, or even Arsenal. So it was we're just the easy bandwagon to jump on and just be like, look at this, it's so outrageous, Tottenham got away with murder. But that's my personal view.
The irony is that on that list we are also in the relegation zone, if that's the thing. One of the trophies one of these alternate trophies we don't win. Yeah, we're
so what's the net situation for Spurs?
Spurs, it looks like it's -3 at the moment.
Okay. Who's benefiting the most? I've got a suspicion.
Ironically, it's Brentford.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. So I don't know. Unless Brentford's a top 6 club, I don't.
And Arsenal are only ±1, right? So they're, to be fair to them, they're.
Okay.
I know everyone will be thinking the same. Like, Gunners got lucky. No, they're actually kind of level.
I think United and Liverpool are both positive.
Liverpool, Fulham, and Brentford are top of the table.
It's mad that Liverpool have had the rub of the green of decisions this season and still find themselves where they find themselves. That's just mental. Although, to be fair, we're going to lead on to it soon later on, but they should have beaten Arsenal today, and well done for them for getting a point, but they were the better side if you take both halves into account. They probably got a bit unlucky not to win that. But anyway, just back to the Brighton game a sec. De Zerbi, I know in the fan survey from The Athletic, only 10% of fans voted for him, but as we've interviewed coaches on this podcast before, and if you listen to the Cheese Room podcast, they have Sandro on as a special guest who's worked with De Zerbi and kind of says he's the best manager he's ever worked with. It kind of got us really excited that maybe this is the guy we should be going for. But then where do you feel about him after his bizarre outburst before the game and his general behaviour at the match? We'll go in reverse order this time. Johnny, what did you make of it?
I suppose it's like just when we've come off Conte and before that Mourinho, it's I don't know, it wasn't impressive, was it? He just seems to be in that frame from the very beginning, and I just don't want a manager like that. And I thought actually in the post-match press conference. I thought that Stellini was really grown up, and I thought I was impressed with how well he spoke. I think he was really humble, actually, and obviously didn't inflame the situation at all. And he was kind of like just underlining his sort of rookie status as a head coach, and that he wants to learn from other managers and stuff. So the things he was coming out with, I thought he was the one who was actually being respectful, even though apparently it was his lack of respect for Stellini, for De Zerbi, that had prompted De Zerbi's ire. So I don't know. It wasn't good, and you can't deny what you're seeing on the pitch at the same time, can you? I mean, I think we'd all prefer to watch that sort of football every week. So would it mean that if De Zerbi was given the Spurs job, I would be annoyed? Obviously not, because ultimately the football your team's playing is more important than the personality of your manager. But the personality of your manager, I mean, just from the personal, like who you want to be representing, the face of your club, like Pochettino, yeah, he could be a bit moody and everything else, but he was basically a pretty sporting guy and a pretty legit character. And Nuno was like, Mr. Nice too. Like, I just don't want another, asshole in charge of the team. But if they're playing great football and getting the best out of them, it wouldn't have me jumping at the bit to get him off.
One extreme to the other, isn't it? We get a guy who, Mr. Nuno, Mr. Nice Guy, and then we go to a guy who's been proved of match fixing.
Exactly.
But Stu, what about you, mate?
Yeah, I mean, you guys all know that I've been very pro De Zerbi, with my comments both in the chat and on the pod. Been a big fan of his since he was at Sassuolo. And again, the performance on the pitch kind of underlines what a great job he's done. But my fear is, as you guys said, is if he got riled up because Stellini said in a pre-match conference, where in general he was quite positive about him, but apparently the comments that riled him up were that he'd said they inherited Potter's team, and he wasn't as tactically flexible as Potter, and apparently that's what upset him. So if you think he's getting upset about things like this, imagine when the top managers start playing mind games before big games and things like that. And that's when you start thinking, do we really want someone that hopefully will take us to the promised land where we will be competing, and then he's going to get the whole team nervous and we're basically beaten before the kickoff. So yeah, I was super disappointed by that.
Yeah, as much as we talk about mentality with the players, mentality with the manager is as important, if not more important, because that's kind of where the mentality of the team comes from, as it stems from the top. And if you have someone with as much as I love the way that De Zerbi plays, and as much as I would probably still be happy if he were the one that we ended up going for, if you have someone that gets riled up by a compliment sandwich, then imagine imagine what happens if you were to go against someone like Mourinho. Like, he would just get eaten for breakfast. That's not something that is a good quality of a manager, especially of a manager of a big club like Tottenham.
Yeah, torn between I just want I want a manager who's going to live with us for 5+ years, and my fear is for all the good things he does on the pitch, if it's another fiery character, it's just a time bomb with our chairman, even though he is supposedly, and we should talk about that as well. There's that new role that's come into place, right? A chief football officer has come in to apparently take the footballing decisions away from Daniel Levy. Now, this is an interesting one because someone corrected me. Pratici was not a director of football. He was a managing director of football. So this could either be one of two things or three things. It's either Daniel Levy, as the skeptics would say, this is Levy just putting a smokescreen in front of himself and someone to take the bullets and it's business as usual. Others would say this is just Pratici's replacement early doors. It's an MD of football, effectively, with a different title, and Pratici is going to lose responsibilities in the same way Hitchen did and just, worst case scenario for Spurs, walk away on his own accord. Or The more optimist would say Levy's finally taken a step back, put someone in charge who knows the structure of City Football Group to build a proper football structure. But what do you guys make of it?
In my opinion, it's a combination of the latter two. I think he's come over looking at the job description, he's basically doing what Paratici was doing. And I think we all expect Paratici to get fired as soon as he loses his appeal. And I think, although we hate to give any credit to Daniel, I think that he probably did start looking for a possible replacement. After all, he did behave like a big boy. And as soon as the Paratici, hearing came in and it got done the first time, he started looking into it and found a replacement. You don't hire someone like that because 1 week ago we got the news that he's been banned worldwide and the petition has been signed by 10,000 people saying that Levy's got to go. So I think that he's replacing Paratici, but I also think, hopefully, I'm optimistic, that he will hire a DOF to work under him. So that really means that Daniel's completely out. This guy's managing the football business, and then there's a DOF handling the first team duties and hiring a coach and the rest of it. Because I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I don't think he's as much of a footballing guy as we need in a DOF role.
No. Johnny, I want to ask you then, so this new guy, is he going to be do you think this guy is actually going to have full autonomy over their decisions, or do you think that Daniel's, because so I just want to sit with to that we are not a big Levy out or in, podcast. We're relatively pragmatic about it. We're like, he's done a decent job to get where he is, but he's probably not the guy to get us to that next level, winning trophies that we need to get to. But hey, he's not going anywhere, so we've just got to make deal with it for now. But at the end of the day, 90% of his business is Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. So is he actually going to employ someone to take all the decision making away from what is 90% of his business? What do you indeed think? I'll start with you, Johnny. What do you think?
Yeah, to be honest, I don't really know enough about Scott Munn and his pedigree. I mean, I've read bits and pieces. I probably don't know as much as you guys here. But from what I've read, I certainly would be nervous, as Stu's just said, with him not having a DOF to work for him with regards to the oversight of the especially the first team and the recruitment. And I guess that from a historic point of view, even as I understand it, when Paratici was appointed, that was supposed to be a time when Levy was basically parking the kind of the level of involvement that he had before, and he was basically doing all the negotiations for transfers and things. But clearly that hasn't really happened in every case. And Levy's supposed to have done a very good job in the end with dealing with the Paro situation. I don't know about I know that Sporting were being kind of tricky with that, to be put politely. But Levy does seem to have a track record, doesn't he, of just finding it difficult to leave things alone. And as you say, Jim, it is a football club, and that's where his money's being made. If Spurs took a nosedive, he's going to lose a lot of money, isn't he? So is he going to be capable of trusting the folk that are being appointed for these roles? I mean, it kind of makes sense, as I understand it. It does make sense to do this, and hopefully this guy has got the credentials and ability to do what is hoped will happen. But I don't know, there's obviously quite a lot of skepticism from certain quarters based on what his level of experience is, and where a lot of it is, I don't think, has he done anything in Europe? I don't think I'd seen that he's done anything here. So that's it's quite a step, isn't it, to be coming in and one of the top clubs in Europe, which is basically what we are, to have that responsibility. So it'd be interesting to see. But I think most of us would probably be very skeptical about Levy being able to keep his fingers out of the pie, because he just doesn't really do that.
I don't think that Levy will necessarily keep his fingers out of the pie completely, but I do think this is another step in removing them a little bit. Maybe he's only got like a pinky in the pie now. But because like regardless of what you think of Daniel Levy, I think that we can agree that he that he likes money. And I don't think and he also doesn't really care what we think of him as much as like we wish he did. So why would he hire this guy if drop probably not that much money considering how much money we bring in and out, but like a not insignificant amount of money for him that he could just put in his own bank, add on to his own thing, hire himself for that role. But I think that this is overall a good thing. I think that we obviously won't be able to do everything sans Levy because he obviously will still set the budget and everything. But I do think I'm hoping that because from what the statement said, it said that this was as a result of like an outside I don't want to say investigation, but like a look into our footballing activities from an outside company or something. And this is kind of what came up to that. So I'm hoping that he's looked at the past couple of years. He said, okay, what I've done hasn't worked. We can get this guy who, despite not having any experience in Europe, still has experience with one of the biggest footballing institutions in the world, with the City Football Group. And we can get him in to run the footballing side. Obviously, because of the title of what he was hired and given the title that Paratici had, I would assume we would bring in a director of football. Obviously, I have zero sources at the club, so I don't know. But it would make sense to keep the kind of structure we have and just add another name on top instead of just renaming what Paratici was to whatever Munn's title is now. But yeah, I think that this is overall a good move. I think that obviously it could just all be a smokescreen. It could be that Levy has just hired someone to go stand in front of the media, but I mean, our board doesn't talk to the press anyway. I don't see why they would do that.
Yeah. My mind's at 2 points for this, right? One of them is that Daniel Levy, for his motivation is to grow Tottenham Hotspur to become as valuable as it can possibly be. Ultimately, that is his goal. And if he can win some trophies along the way, that ultimately adds to the value of the club and makes him look good. That's fantastic for him. So he does want us to grow and be successful even if it's not as his primary motive, that is a benefit to him for the club to improve and win trophies. So hiring someone who's got experience doing things that he thinks can take the club forward is a benefit to him. And I think like what you guys are saying is, I don't want to be too skeptical of this. I don't think it's a pure smokescreen, but this guy isn't got a CV that glitters guaranteed success either, that Scott Munn's appointing for. So if anyone listening doesn't know, he was part of City Football Group, who owned Man City, and he was the chief executive for the APAC region. So he ran I think it was Melbourne. Anyway, one of the Australian clubs. He built it to a decent level, but he only won one trophy with them during that time. And then he ran the Chinese.
He's perfect for us.
Yeah. Then he ran the Chinese element of City Football Group. But more importantly, it seems what the club's doing is saying, we want someone to tell us how this multi-club model works and how Man City are doing this, because they're gobbling up all this talent from around the world, feeding them through clubs, getting extra revenue, inflating their revenues and getting extra sponsorships. We need to copy that. So getting someone in who knows how it works is kind of step one, even though we might not. Yeah.
Weren't we in talks with one of the clubs in Belgium a couple of years ago? I remember.
Yeah, we were.
Yeah. So maybe this is I hadn't thought of that. I was like, that's a good point. Maybe this is just the next step in doing something like that.
I think it is that. Yeah, this guy's not brought in to know who the best players are and be our chief scout. He's just here's how you structure it, and we need to employ someone to do all that stuff for us. And I've got some contacts. It's basically if you've all worked for a big company, you take that sideways move in your career for a smaller company, but for a bigger role. I kind of feel and you're typically hardened to that smaller company for your knowledge of how the big company works. And and that's kind of this. It's a step in the right direction. But my realistic Levy experience hat on of 22 years, Daniel, is he will never be fully out of the football decisions. He cannot help it. There will always be a Daniel club signing coming in. And to be fair to him, Luka Modric was a Daniel club signing. But he does pull out some good ones, as was Van der Vaart. Unfortunately, as was Sissoko.
Yeah.
So it's mixed success.
The only thing I think as well is that this guy was clearly, having somewhat of a career in City. For him to come and join us, he's not coming just to be a smokescreen and allow Levy to continue doing whatever the hell he wants. I think I agree with you that there's no way he'll be able to pull out completely, but hopefully this will allow him to focus on the money spinning part of the business that he is good at, finding us finally someone to sponsor this multi-sport event stadium, working on developing all those, the building projects that we've got going on that we're not all that sure about where the money's coming from, what they're doing, etc. But if he focuses on that, generating money, and brings in someone who knows how to structure the footballing side and also brings in a DOF, maybe I'm naive, or just really so desperate for success that I'm hoping this is going to work out. But, I'm hopeful.
Yeah.
This guy's not a savior, but he's a step in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say.
I think all you can do is be hopeful at this point, because if you're not hopeful, you're miserable.
Exactly. Yeah. But it is a step in the right direction, right? It's a proper structure. We are doing the opposite of Chelsea, like where they built a lovely structure and were being very successful whilst having the bonus of being able to burn through cash. And by the way, they reported today they're the first club ever to lose $1 billion. So they have lost, no, £1 billion. So they have operated at a £1 billion loss over the last decade. So
how they survived
that is
FP?
meant.
Someone has to explain this to me.
It's got to be part of the buyout, right?
Yeah, so Abramovich agreed to write off all the liabilities, didn't he, and basically pay them back for them. There was some weird thing like that. And there's also come out that Bowley, when he took over Chelsea, he put his hands up to some accounting misdemeanors that he'd found that weren't his fault. They were his predecessors. But there were things like Abramovich used to buy one seat in the ground for £1 million a season. Just to inflate, there were things like that going on.
Own Vitesse and then say he didn't own Vitesse.
Yes.
Yeah. No.
Lots of, yeah.
I think that Chelsea is actually a great example of, no matter how much you want to believe that you have a great scouting department, you have a great department, the owner, which Daniel Levy is our owner as much as he is our chairman, because, he owns decent chunk of us. The owner will always have the final say. You can't tell me that you've got eight. You can't tell me that you have a director of football at Chelsea who is making all of these signings and refuses to sign a striker. There's no way. That's not. You can't tell me that you buy both Mudryk and Madueke. Madueke for maybe a semi-reasonable sum of money, but Mudryk for a completely unreasonable sum of money for the product that he is right now. So
30 million for Madueke.
Well, look, have you seen their balance sheet? Kieran Maguire, who's brilliant, by the way. Look at the balance sheet he's posted today. So he said in that post that Chelsea are becoming the first club to lose $1 billion. They have 50 million in cash in the bank, and they owe 350 million in liabilities over the next 12 months. They owe 300 beyond what cash they have in reserves. They've got to raise, someone was saying, over 200 million to comply with financial fair play in the next transfer window. So they've got to sell 200 million pounds worth of players. And Bowley's banked on him having this big squad and being able to do that easily. But I don't think he's realised, who's got the money to buy these guys? If you don't sell to Tottenham because we're a rival, you can't sell to Man United. They're apparently a rival. You can't sell to City. Serie A's broke to shit. so is a Liga. Where are you going to get this money from?
I have to say that I don't know how, but they have been very good at selling players. They managed to sell Abraham to Roma for a decent chunk of money. I do not understand why or even how Roma got the money, but hopefully that streak of luck has run out. But they have been good at it.
Russian oligarch up top. I feel like he could probably be pretty good.
Well, Abramovich put 90 million in a season, didn't he? For his whole tenure, was the average cash injection he put in to keep them running, which is mental. And Bowley is also, on top of all these losses, made a legal guarantee that he will build them a new stadium in one of the most expensive parts of London, in Chelsea. Like, what's brilliant about this whole thing is if since Tuchel left, they were basically in the bottom 3 or bottom 5 of the Premier League table in terms of form. So if this continues into next season, they are genuine relegation candidates. And if by the 1% chance they get relegated happens, they are fucked.
Oh yeah,
they are completely fucked.
Like
they could not exist anymore.
Heartless.
It'd be so good.
It would be very nice. I would honestly, one of the best things Americans have done in this beautiful game.
Well, what's the
Tear
story
that
with the
club down.
stadium? Because I thought that was
Ruha.
kind of supposed to be happening, wasn't it? Like the permission for the new stadium was because it was only a couple of years behind us. I thought that they were.
Well, yeah, they're talking about having to move to Earl's Court because isn't there some weird thing of around the stadium or something to do with part of the grounds, part owned by the Chelsea pensioners, and they are shareholders of the club, and they need to agree to sell the land, but then they lose their homes that they're in, and it's all this kind of weird, complicated mess. So he's like, we'll just move to Earl's Court, which, to be fair, if people don't know London, that's only like a couple of miles down the road, I think. It's on the same tube line. It's not far at all. But still, people are really obviously staunchly against that, who have been Chelsea fans their whole life. Or even the last 20 years, they're like, they can't, I've got mates, they just can't get their heads around the fact that they're only what they are because they've been artificially pumped full of money. They're like, no, we're really good because we did everything right. And it's like, no, you weren't. You literally have lost sense of reality. You are only what you are because you were doped to shit. You are the boxer who has just been like injected with every good possible performance enhancing drug possible. They banned the drugs and now you're shit. And you just can't get your head around that. You're still like, no, I won on talent. It's like, no, you didn't.
It's insane that they got to beat the saviors of football in the Champions League final because they played one of like 2 clubs worse than them.
I mean, they're pretty much nailed on for not getting Champions League football next season. I mean, that's going to have a huge impact as well. You know, they'll have to generate even more than 200 million this summer.
We're not even going to get European football at this point.
Anywhere.
That might be a good thing, though. We had that conversation, didn't we, last time? Like, we all said we'd rather be 8th, so...
Well, yeah, we would rather be, but we don't need that money.
Yeah.
Well, they need it. Their stadium
they need to beat the Champions League. Like, what happened? Yeah. But, like, the Conference League...
The thing that makes me laugh most is all these rumours about them being after Conte.
Oh, please. Oh,
please. Like, how is that going to work?
Oh, please. I would pay so much money. I would clear their debt if they hired Conte as a manager. Oh, he would not last a season. He would not last a season.
It would be so good. It would be so, and it's just the irony that he would have left us. And one of the main reasons was club signings because we signed him 2 club players, and he's got 30 club signings on his books on day one, and he's not allowed to sign anyone else.
Can't sign anyone else. Yep.
It would be beautiful if he went there and we saw.
I don't know why anyone would want to go there. They'll end up with some manager that's ridiculous because money talks.
I think they'll get Nagelsmann. I think he'll. Well, actually, I don't know. I'm
that's
on this thing of the big name managers have all gone like, yeah, I want the Chelsea job, and I feel like because they haven't been following the Premier League as closely, they've looked into it and they've gone.
Or have Chelsea?
Well, Nagelsmann apparently did.
Yeah, but now it's coming out that Nagelsmann's waiting for the summer, even though everyone said, "Oh, Nagelsmann said he'll take the Chelsea job." I wonder why that happened. I wonder if that actually happened, or if Chelsea affiliates or the media who love Chelsea for whatever reason were like, "Oh, clearly he'll take the job, so we'll just print this and get some easy money, easy credit in the bank once he accepts, because he will accept because it's Chelsea." And then, oh no, now Nagelsmann actually looks at them and he says, "Oh, y'all are a bit of a shit show." And steps back, waits for the summer. Same thing he told us, apparently.
Well, apparently Luis Enrique came across and clearly he didn't sign because they brought in Fat Frank. So
he was at the game today, apparently, by the way.
Yeah, hopefully that doesn't mean anything.
I know. I think he was there with Chelsea and he was also checking us out on the way over. But as the fan survey said, 2% of fans want Enrique, so I think that sums it up.
But I think it just shows that all managers are waiting for the summer because they're all like, okay, let's see how this shit show of a season ends. Who's going to have money? Which managers, move elsewhere? Ancelotti, first of all, and then we'll see.
I think everyone's kind of waiting for that Madrid pin to drop because obviously that's the pinnacle of managerial experience.
100%. That is, no matter how big we think Man United and Liverpool are, Real Madrid, and fair play to them, no matter what their financial situation, they are the biggest club in the world.
Yeah,
and
easily.
They're everyone's dream to manage them. But I don't want to spend too long on Chelsea and other.
I don't know. It's been nice to talk about other
clubs.
It's nice shit now.
Well, and let's just finish on the fact that we are better than Liverpool and Chelsea at the moment. And we're on par with Man United, who have spent more money than anyone else in the world and have the biggest wage bill in the world.
But their manager hasn't been backed, I thought.
Oh, no, the manager hasn't been backed. So, but we're the problem of the Premier League. We're the joke of the Premier League. Of course we are. But that's on the topic of all that media bias I think we're going to finish on tonight in a little bit. But I just wanted to quickly divert back to that really good survey The Athletic did. So they got 4,000 fans. And the key thing about this is they didn't fixate on Twitter fans, because they went for a diverse fan base. And what they found is once you pass about 500 fans, it doesn't matter if you have 500 or 4,000 or 100,000, the results start to basically stay the same. So it's a pretty good one. And I know, Deej, you've got some views on this, but I wanted to ask a quick question to Johnny, because I want to start with Johnny, because a lot of you don't, just to remind a lot of you haven't listened to this regularly, Johnny flies to every single game from overseas to see Spurs as a season ticket holder. So I think I'll give him the crown as the most dedicated in-person fan on the pod. But Maurizio Pochettino's name was being sung out over the stadium, as was Levy out. And in this survey, it says that 92% of fans think that Levy's basically done a good job to get us where he is, but they no longer trust him to take us forward any further. And they also, 30% of fans want Poch as the next manager. So what I'm saying is, where do you think that Pochettino in chanting and Levy out chanting representing the fan base as a whole?
Because I wasn't in the ground, actually, ironically, after the wonderful bigging up you provided at the start of that little link, I don't know exactly how it happened, but from what I heard, what I've seen online, like the Levy out followed, and correct me if I'm wrong, were you at the game yesterday, Jim?
No, I'm a season ticket holder, but as listeners know, but I did sell my ticket for that one for Easter family commitments. Yeah.
So, but it seemed that from what I gathered, that they were doing the Pochettino song, and then immediately after they were kind of the Levy out. So it was like, I don't know if that's true. If that's true, then you kind of like can logically assume that people are not only expressing their affection for Pochettino and presumably their desire for him to return, because that survey said 30.4% wanted Pochettino at that point, but you know yourself, when Nagelsmann came on the market, he was the 48%. He was the front runner in that survey. I don't know if you asked those 4,000 fans, would there still be 48% saying Nagelsmann? Because I don't know, like, because we're fickle, aren't we? And we don't really know all, like most of us don't really all know all that much, I guess. I mean, I've got a very strong desire for Ange. I think it's unlikely, but we've all got our own ideas in that. But the thing with the 90, the Levy thing, it was 92% or 91.4%. They were asked, do you trust Daniel Levy with on-field matters? So it wasn't necessarily that you want him out or you want him, there is quite a big difference there, isn't there, between wanting him just away from anything to do with an on-field decision and not wanting him to be the chairman. And I would say, like, the response to the question about, has he done a good job? And it was like overwhelmingly that he has, and that Spurs are in a much better place than they were at the beginning, or like when he took over, and which we continually would espouse that opinion too. So yeah, I don't know, like the The Levy out thing, I just think that I've not been at at the ground where there's been really strong expression of animosity towards him. Yeah, sure, it's more about the performances this season anyway. It's more about the performances than with dissatisfaction with Levy. And we are dissatisfied with Levy from certain angles, but I don't think we've said before about the Enoch ownership situation, and wasn't there, because there was talk about during the week regarding the change for Tottenham thing and what fans actually want to happen rather than just complaining about Enoch and not wanting Enoch to remain. The various aspects that we've talked about before in terms of having the plan to move forward, and in terms of, I think, where we all, sorry, I'm kind of rambling a bit here, but like there are two separate things with the management and the ownership. And I do think that survey was really interesting, because I do think it was pretty balanced and pretty measured. And I think it sort of does reflect what we probably find when you're talking to most fellow supporters, and the fact that we didn't really know each other a few months ago. We sort of fairly randomly came together, and we all pretty much agree as well on where we stand. That's not a coincidence, I'm sorry. So yeah, the management thing is interesting. I don't know. I just like the situation with Madrid you were saying, and the fact that even De Zerbi, like, he's not going to be leaving Brighton probably anyway, and he's certainly not going to be leaving Brighton before the end of the season. Andrew isn't going to leave Celtic before the end of the season. The other people that are on the market, like so Enrique, Pochettino, Nagelsmann, they're the ones that are not in the job, but they're all waiting for to see what's going to happen with Madrid possibly. So, you know,
I find with any long-standing argument, it's a long-standing argument because the argument's fairly split, and that is why, and no one can come to a majority conclusion on a matter. So it's the same with the manager thing, right? We've got 4 or 5 names, and there's a roughly equal-ish mix across who wants who as the next manager. So, but Poch is only the second favourite, and I want to ask both Deej and Stu who they want as a manager. But I know, Deej, you're quite positive about the idea of Nagelsmann. He's the most popular name at 48% versus Poch is 30%. And Stu, and I'll start with Deej, but Stu, I want to hear you after, because you also are staunchly against kind of your kind of view of, let's get rid of all the old deadwood, the old guard, the Harry Kanes, the Sons, the Dyer, just cut them all off. Don't go back to Poch. Let's start fresh. And Deej, you've got a slightly more in the middle approach, I'd say, of maybe 1 or 2 of those players could hang around and Nagelsmann could potentially work.
Yeah. I think I would like Nagelsmann, because I think Nagelsmann is a brilliant manager. That's not to say that I think he's the perfect manager for us. Obviously, he has documented issues with his relationship with the board at Bayern, which obviously doesn't bode well for us, given the nature of our board. But I don't know. I when I'm looking at like a manager, I am looking, because from like what I like look at and what I see, like I believe like the number one thing to build like a good morale and like build like a good mentality, because we talk about mentality so much, is just winning. And it's like, and not just winning, but like winning, playing. I think that playing attacking football is something that is just and kind of like an artificial boost to mentality, whereas winning is the most important thing, obviously, because like look at our mentality last season versus this season under Conte. Under Conte last season, when we were winning, we were mentality monsters. This season, when we're not winning, they don't want to play under pressure. They have such a weak mentality. So, but besides winning, if you lose a game, but you like go out there and you give the opponent all they can handle, you give like the opposition all they can handle, I think you can walk away with your head held higher than a 1-1 to Everton. I'm sorry, sitting back and just waiting, what feels like waiting for an equalizer, which has been what we've done under 2 managers now, because I remember the first time I think this really set in was a game. It was against Fulham with Mourinho, I think, where I think we were up 1-0, and I was just sitting there and I was like, well, when are they going to equalize? And they equalized. So like we've had this kind of, whether rightly or wrongly, because let's be real, we've been better than that overall. Just look at our form. We got Champions League football last season. I think that the media probably makes it meal of it a bit. And obviously, we'll talk about media bias more in a bit. But we've been that kind of team. We've been the team to go up one and hold on to a lead, and you. I feel like fans tend to come out of those games like we've come out of the game against Brighton feeling, oh, we won, but it's papering over the cracks. Oh, we won, but they had a lot of chances, which is what sitting back kind of is designed to do. Let them have a lot of chances, just, hopefully don't let them score any. Which worked against Brighton, thanks to some questionable refereeing decisions, and almost worked against Everton if Michael Keane didn't score probably the goal of his life. But I think that the most important, all that to say, I think that the most important thing here is to build a positive mentality. I think that obviously, if you think that the old guard is bringing the mentality down, that's an opinion that I completely respect. But I think that the most important thing is just bringing in someone to make us play the way that Poch had us play, because we had that positive mentality then. We went out and we equalized in the 95th minute against Ajax in the Champions League semifinal. I'm sorry, there isn't a bigger pressure point than that, besides maybe the final. I don't want to talk about that. But we had those games. The late show with Christian Eriksen. We had those things. We were the team that would win those games late with Poch because we played that attacking football and we were always going out to win. And now we're playing this game. We've been playing this game under the last couple of managers where we'll go up because obviously we have two of the greatest attacking footballers England has ever seen. And then we wait. We play on the counter. And obviously playing on the counter will bring us more goals. We'll beat teams. We'll smack teams sometimes because they'll try to get a second, and we'll beat them on the counter, and then then it's just we run it up on them because they go all out attacking, and we just sit back and we play very well on the counter. But that's kind of why I'm looking forward to more of a Pochettino or a Nagelsmann or just anyone who can put us back to that kind of mentality that we had before of going out to win a game and winning that game positively, because I think that's what brings the mentality we need.
Fair points. Good points. Yeah, you've got me kind of semi-convinced. And I'm going to let Stu throw his punches with you on mute as the next step before we make... And then after Stu, after your bit, we're going to swing into something we can all agree on, that the media hates us, and we're going to discuss that in a bit more detail. But Stu, go on, finish off the manager debate. And you've got to include who your primary choice is in this.
I agree with Deej about the style of football. I think unless you've got, backline of Maldini and Baresi, the typical Catenaccio Italian approach, we've got a strong defense, which is built for inviting, the other team to attack and then hit them on the counter. It doesn't work. We need to be on the front foot. So I'm all for a manager who's going to be back and focusing on the strength of our team. And it also happens to be a style of football that's more attractive and one that fits with, the history of our club. The thing I would disagree with, the great years of Pochettino, that we were strong mentally. The Ajax one, yes, it was amazing, big game, semi-final. But in my opinion, we benefited from the fact that Ajax was an incredibly young, inexperienced team that kept trying to attack to score another goal. And if you think, we hit them on the counter, which an experienced side would never, ever allow. And Pochettino, how many finals did he lose? 4 for us? How many semifinals did he lose for us? When it mattered, this great mentality didn't get us over the line. And whether you want to blame Poch for it, the players for it, combination, which I think it is, it's a combination of both, but I think Poch was naive. And I think the players, when it mattered, didn't do it. And I mentioned it in the group chat earlier. We have a lot of captains in our squad, national team captains. I don't see any leaders on that pitch. Whether it's Lloris, whether it's Son, whether it's Kane, whether it's Davies, any of them. And that's why I think we need to get rid of the old guard, is because they've been scarred through the years of failing. Whether you like it or not, when you're young and you're winning, you're inexperienced, you don't know, you're not scarred, you try. Our players have failed so many times. And in the case of Kane, even at national level, he's failed when it matters in the big games.
But do you think, Stu, and this is kind of leaning on Deej's point, do you think if a big enough character came in, he could shift that mentality change? Not just, he could be the difference to basically get those players to have the confidence that and the right mentality in those big games.
Maybe, but when it comes to our old guard, let's be honest, Lloris is over the hill. Dyer is awful. The first disallowed goal for Brighton was his typical mistake of being in the defence and hoofing the ball into the middle of the park, and they came as, Dyer has to go.
Yes.
So those two have got to go no matter what. Then
Absolutely.
you're basically left with Son and Kane. Son, I love Son. Who cannot love Son? He's amazing. 100 goals, first Asian player to hit 100 goals in the Premier League. Fantastic player. But the only reason I would get rid of him is, he is, 30, 31 this summer? And I think we always hold on to players too long. Fergie always made the right choice of getting rid of the player a year before they fell off a cliff. And I think while we can kind of benefit from that, get rid of him and bring in someone else. Kane, I would hate for him to go. But if he's not going to sign a new contract, he's got to go as well.
Yeah.
And invest in a new team. And at that point, it is easier, in my opinion, for whoever comes in, because he's got a new team. There's no leaders that he's inheriting that have been there before and say, no, you've tried, that doesn't work. He's got a new team that he's going to mold, and he gets to start a brand new project. And that's what I'm for. We tried, we gave it a good shot, we didn't make it.
Yeah.
Let's go again.
Yeah.
Go
ahead.
Sorry, go.
No, go ahead. I was just
Go.
Okay, fine. I was just gonna say I am up for selling Kane if he doesn't renew. My only worry about Son, and it's the thing that I voiced in the group chat, I have no idea who's gonna buy him. I just don't think that his profile of player is one that I feel like you can get someone that's almost as good as Son, who's younger, for probably a similar amount of money. And
I agree with you on that. When I say sell him, it's obviously sell him if someone's going to come in and make an offer, not give him away and sell him on a free. It's obviously if we get a decent, attractive offer that makes it worthwhile.
Yeah, if we get a decent offer for Son, absolutely.
Yeah.
The other thing, though, and you can't make absolutely ridiculous wholesale changes either. And we talked the last time around with that list of players that a lot of supporters want to get rid of, and we would say I think we said about 4 of them we would keep. That means you're getting rid of about 9 there before you're even going to talk about players that we actually would kind of quite like to have, but we feel that there's a benefit from moving them on. It doesn't mean that you don't move them on, but the thought of especially potentially both Kane and Son moving at the same time, that would be, I don't know.
I do kind of agree. Johnny, you're spot on, mate. I'm kind of at this point of we're in this constant transition, but at the same time, no, actually, fuck, because I couldn't name 5 players in our 11 squad that I'd be like, cool, you are so good that we need to keep building a team around you. I could say Bentancur, Romero.
Yes.
Bentancur, Romero, Kane.
Pedro, Porro.
Maybe. But he's not standout definite, because if we go to 4 at the back, he's not definite. What I'm saying is, it's not like we've got 8 really good players and we have got loads of good players, but we don't know who our ones we can rely on are.
I think.
But I, in my opinion, when I say Davies and not Davies, Dyer and Lloris have got to go because they're just past it. When I was saying about Son and Kane, it's not necessarily from a football perspective, whether we like it or not. we've got to look at it from the business perspective.
Yeah.
You know, we can't afford for Kane to leave on a free. It's as simple as that. That would be devastating from a sporting and financial perspective.
But then at the same time, it's kind of like you're loaning the best striker in England for 80 million quid for a season if you keep him. I don't know. I just want to go back to that last point, the mentality, because I've got this, which is, when was it, 2008? So that's 13 years old when we last won a fucking trophy, and I had this pinned up on my wall. And it's falling to pieces, thinking I'd have like a whole collage of these. But I've still just got one little clipping that's followed me home after home. Like, it's the most pathetic. I was looking at the team with the player ratings on it, and I was thinking, in that team we had Alan Hutton, Jermaine Genius, Didier Zakora, Steve Malbranc. Like, none of these are fucking leaders.
Yeah.
But we had Dimitar Berbatov, and he's the guy celebrating scoring the goal. And I do think you're like that one big kind of leader in the team away from making it over the line like we did.
But that's my
against
criticism of Kane, is he's great, wonderful goal scorer, but in the big games, he isn't the one who shows up at national and international level. You know, it's a fact. I mean, I know it's blasphemy to criticize Kane, but it's a fact.
Well,
it's reality.
It's a kind of thing of like, okay, it's true that he hasn't turned up at the big games, but it's also an element of like, he's just not the kind of player that just pings a goal in from like 45 yards when you need a goal. It's just not his game. He's just Mr. Consistent.
Yeah, because that's why I was here. You know, it's the team's fault. It's the team's fault. But the team's good enough to get us to that final.
Son's been a far better big game player than Kane.
Look at the likes of Wigan, Birmingham, Leicester. They make one final, they win that one final. We make 4 since the last time we won one. We've lost every single one. True. At that point, you started looking at the players because the managers have changed.
True, and it's also, let's face it, like, we can't let Levy get out this whole conversation scot-free.
Sure.
We've got to like, he is the figurehead of the company, in inverted commas, setting the culture. And I can't imagine he's in there, like, with the whole, like, Tottenham, all their staff, and Daniel's on stage being like, we're going to fucking win the league and I'm not fucking leaving till we do, like Wolf of Wall Street style. It's going to be quite the opposite of Daniel. He's going to be very, like he's not going to instill that culture of, like, everyone hates us and we hate them and we're going to win it. Like, I think everyone's to blame.
That's why, going back to the manager point, that's why my first choice was De Zerbi, which, okay, I'm a little bit skeptical now about after his little, sensitive performance the other day. But the second one is Slot, because we're bringing in someone who's enthusiastic, who's young, who hasn't been scarred yet by failure, who hasn't been at a big club, sees us as a step down. Even Pochettino, yes, he's been with us before, he loves us, but it's still a step down. He was at a club which had loads of money, which was dominating the league. He'd be coming back to us, loving us, but I'm sure deep down there'll be the frustration, and like, guys, at my former company, we were doing this. I want someone to come in and just fresh enthusiasm with a fresh squad and just, again, maybe I'm naive, but I just think we need to start again and hopefully this time it works.
Mm-hmm. But boys, we're running out of time, so I'm going to skip to the last topic really quickly. We've got about 5-6 minutes left. But why does everyone fucking hate us?
I don't know, man. Because we just so happen to be in the centralized area where we have every team in London hates us the most, and so that kind of rubs off on everyone else. I don't know, man. It doesn't make any sense. There's like the penalty against Southampton because it was just complete and utter. Like, I'm not going to pretend like it was even close to being a 50-50 decision. It was a garbage decision. It was on par with the Matoma decision, in my opinion. But you get that one, everyone's like, oh, tough shit. You guys should have been better. You should have won the game anyway. You should have, like, that sucks. Tough for you. Deal with it. This is the way of the game. Brighton does it. Every Matoma, the penalty, obviously, incorrectly not given. But everyone loses their shit. Everyone loses their mind. Everyone, we should replay the game. We have verified journalists tweeting out, Brighton should seriously look into replaying this game. Are you serious? Like, where is this energy when any of this shit happens?
We are in the dictionary for basically having the worst luck in the world, and no one gives a fuck. We become a parody for that, and we dare Tottenham be on the funny side of it, like laughing at someone else. And it's like, okay, this is ridiculous now. It all needs to stop. There's clearly corruption in the game. Fuck the fact that Man United had Fergie time for 15 years and we laughed it off. Fuck the fact that Liverpool were basically called Liverpool and gifted a title because the Premier League wanted a title challenge against City. Like, screw the fact that Leicester were basically, you've got a referee who literally says, we all wanted you to win it and we actually literally did try and help you win it. That's all fine. That is fine. But one game that Tottenham gets the rub of the green, it's like, we've got to shut the whole thing down. Like ground zero, this can't happen again. Tottenham got something out of this. And I do think a lot of it is Man United own the majority of the media and the pundits, and they hate us because we don't sell anyone to them since that Berbatov spat with Levy. They've always wanted Kane. They're always begging for him. He's always turned them down. Gary Neville's marching on the golf course. We've never given it to them. We've consistently finished above them, so they fucking hate us. And we're now above Chelsea, so they always hate us. West Ham, there's an amalgam of reasons why.
I googled this actually earlier today just to see what was come up, and there's actually I think it was 2019. There was an article in 442 magazine, which is like pretty respected publication, and it was titled "Why Does Everyone Hate Tottenham?" And like the sort of I didn't read the whole thing, but like the introduction was going on about the fact that basically we're all delusional. The fans are delusional because we think we're a really big club and we never win anything. And, we keep just choking which we kind of talked about a little bit earlier when Stu was talking about like our recent record in finals. And that's like undeniably correct. But it's what kind of bugs me is like you're saying about the select response to Spurs in the same situation as the other teams find themselves in. So we talked about the Kane, the lambasting he got with the response to the Doucouré thing last week, and the fact that we're not talking about Doucouré, what he did. We're talking about what Kane did. We talk about Tottenham being in crisis. Like yesterday or the day before, I was reading even the way that it says like high flying Brighton to visit, under pressure Tottenham. I mean, and that's true. I suppose that you don't expect Brighton to be doing that well. But if you look at the league table, we're actually above them. But we're the ones who are sort of portrayed as the club that's kind of up shit creek. And there was last week, I remember watching Football Focus, and like Alex Scott, the host, she was talking about Spurs being in crisis, and she was kind of like delivering it like she's got Arsenal association, doesn't she? Like, but
she played for Arsenal.
And she was pretty much laughing when she was like introducing the piece. It's just like they would put on her bottle jobs with the whole Leicester thing. I remember there was a game against, I think it was that season when we
bottle jobs, even though we were never top.
Yeah, exactly.
And Arsenal finished second, so they bottled it.
And Arsenal were top of the league at Christmas.
Fuck. It's just like the biggest name on TalkSport is Laura Woods. She's a gooner.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
You've got Alex Scott, who's the biggest female voice on Sky. She's a gooner. You've got Graham Souness, who's one of the biggest voices on Sky. He's Liverpool. You've got Gary Neville, Man United. You've got Jamie Carragher, Liverpool.
What I don't understand is why the people who are Spurs also dig out Spurs like half the time.
That's true.
Jamie Redknapp.
He's awful.
But Jamie Redknapp's because Daddy got sacked by Tom
Exactly. I know why, but he's supposedly the Spurs guy.
Yeah.
No, but there is an element though of this whole kind of thing of like it's bear down fundamentals, right? If Sky look at their audience data, 80% of people support the same 5 clubs, and they are not Tottenham. They are Man United, Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, and City. That is where most of the fans sit. So whatever they say will get better feedback if it is beneficial to those clubs. So even if Jermaine Genius is there, like pushing against the majority, being like, "Nah, Tottenham are better than Man United, who are just a shit club riding off Fergie's old coattails," like that's really bad for him because his whole salary and career is based on ratings, I'm guessing, and how many people enjoy listening to his commentary. So we are just always going to be that club until we somehow luck through a sustained period of success of like 15 years. And then as a result, we start to control the media, which is never going to happen.
You're spot on. The one thing you've forgotten all those things about changing the rules. They changed the handball law after the Llorente goal against City. I mean, anything that benefits us, they just, they'll change to make sure it doesn't happen again.
And they wait.
And I'm just...
I was gonna say they wait until we get screwed by something to change the rules again, like the Sissoko handball, the Dyer handball, the Mora handball. Like all those three decisions, I think the rules were changed within a week.
Yeah, the Dyer handball against Newcastle, where they got that late penalty.
Yeah,
and then the Mora one against Sheffield.
Oh my God, that was horrendous.
That was one of the worst VAR things I've ever seen
I
to
think
this
it was
day.
the worst, yeah.
Oh, it's yeah. There's plenty of threads on Twitter, but if you want to find it, like we are by far net down on VAR decisions. So it's just outrageous and almost hilarious that we are being used as an example of bias in the other direction. It's just like that's I think why Spurs fans, like Brighton fans, we agree you were robbed. Yeah. Like we think you were robbed of that game, and we'd be fuming in your shoes. But why 100%. We find it frustrating is nothing to do with you. It's just purely to the fact that we also know how that feels because it happens to us all the time when we play up against Chelsea, as an example, every time that happens to us. And then the one time it happens in our favour, we're like the pin-up poster of what's wrong with officiating.
We were lucky against Chelsea at the Bridge, in fairness, wasn't there? The hair pulling.
That is true.
But yeah, no, in general, sorry, I've got to be honest because somebody will come back and say that.
No, true.
But
even on the whole,
yeah. Alan Smith is always put on commentary for Spurs games. It does my head in. Like how?
Yeah, it's every single game.
What the hell? And there isn't like a Tottenham. I mean, other than you're saying Jamie Carragher, but he doesn't count because he doesn't like Tottenham, and there isn't really. And Glenn Hoddle pops up in BT Sport once in a while, but I think he is quite critical of Spurs, isn't he? Like, I mean, I love Glenn Hoddle. He's my hero. He's my all-time favorite player, probably. But he's quite negative, I think, about Spurs.
I love Glenn. I've got his signed shirt on the wall there.
Yeah,
and it sums up the last time we won a trophy with a signature on it's black and white. Okay, get it. Yeah. But the point is, with Glenn, like. I think he's got a bit of that chip on his shoulder as to the Spurs pundits, even Jermaine Genius, because they all won a trophy with us. So they're like, yeah, when I was at Tottenham, it wasn't like this. We were winners. And now, like, look at them, like, so pathetic. Now we've moved on. They kind of beat us with that stick a bit. But we've got to shut it down in a minute, lads. So
I just
any
wish
final
Dawson
comments?
got higher profile. That's one of the commentators.
Yeah.
He's so pro Spurs. I
love him.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
Yeah. Love him.
He's
Dawes Dawes and Paul Robinson for me they're not Tottenham lads born and bred, but they get it, and I would love to see more of them.
There was like
a
few weeks ago, Aaron Lennon was back at White Hart Lane and he was being interviewed at half time, and obviously he's a Leeds boy, but he's another one I think that there are a few players who obviously was with Spurs for so long. There's definitely they're out there. They're just not out in the media very much, and I do think it's very unfair. It just reinforces the whole like how shit we are basically in the public narrative. Very annoying.
Which is unfair, but it is what it is. We've got Bournemouth next, guys. We're gonna beat them, and then we've got a couple of tough games. We'll cross those bridges as they come.
Win all those two. Top fours are the baby.
Have we got anyone coming back from injury? Because we've got Richarlison's going to be
Richarlison and Richarlison.
Yeah.
Yes.
Davies.
I don't think
he's out for the season.
I think he's out for the season. I'd have to check though. I don't trust me on that.
No, I don't think he's out for the season. I think he's back at the end of the month.
Oh, that's good.
Okay.
But yeah, right. Richarlison's training again, isn't he?
Yeah. Okay, so there's a reasonable optimism anyway. We're gonna,
okay.
There's reasonable optimism. We're gonna beat Bournemouth, and we'll focus on Man United next. But I think they're vulnerable as well, and there's reason for equal. Like that game could go either way. It really, really could. Mm-hmm. It's an old cliche, but yeah. Let's shut it down there, guys, because we're way over by about 15 minutes than we normally would. But lovely to chat with you all. Great to win a game, and up Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
Spurs.